Hey everyone, this is Michael Brook from Rapid Couples Counseling. This video is for the people who might be asking themselves, should I stay or should I go? This is a very common place that people get to in long-term relationships. And it's a question people ask themselves before they end up terminating the relationship. Now, it's a very, very common thing, people to get to this place between the 6 and 9 year mark in a relationship. The question's complex and the answer depends upon the couples involved. Now, this video is an attempt to give some guidelines for your thinking about how to answer this question. That said, it's really important this video is advisory only. Don't make life-changing decisions based on a single YouTube video. Get some extensive help for yourself in your relationship first before you decide to tear down your entire world. It's probably a good idea to get some help from an expert in relationships. One of the things I know from working with lots and lots of couples, if you're the person saying, should I stay or should I go, your partner's probably thinking it and probably feeling it. So it's worthwhile for you to sit down and talk to each other about what's happening for you. Now, guidelines for should I stay or should I go? In creating this video, I decided to split it into two questions. Should you stay? The answer to these questions will be yours and unique to you. And I recognize from working with hundreds of couples that this question is actually very, very complex. For some people, the answer to the question is easy, and some people, the answer to the question is difficult. The longer you're with someone, the more entangled your lives are together, the more difficult the question. Let me just go through some of the things that would be useful for you to consider. If you were to stay, do you still love them? Now, if the answer to that question is no, then forcing yourself to be with somebody can be something that will make you miserable over a long period of time. But if you really still love them, then that gives you something for you to hang on to and something for you to work towards. Now, the next thing is, have you been stressed out of your minds for a long time? Now, often satisfaction with a relationship, often dissatisfaction in a relationship can increase substantially the more stress people are experiencing. So if you're working at 1 or 2 jobs, if you've got a couple of kids and you're stressed out of your brains with the kids, if you're having no time at all for each other, then the probability is you are going to be dissatisfied with the relationship. And if you remove those stresses, as in reduce the amount of stress in your life, if you take some time apart from your kids and get back to doing things that work, well, maybe your satisfaction in the relationship will increase substantially. So this is why stress is a big factor in relationship satisfaction. So it's really important for you to think, is the environment of my life conducive to having a relationship right now? Next thing is, have you been giving your best to the relationship, or have you been withdrawing emotionally or physically? One of the principles I work on with couples is that you work on you and you work on you. So your partner needs to work on their things and you need to work on your things. If you've been withdrawing emotionally and physically, well, that's down to you. If they've been doing the same, that's down to them. How to get forward moving in a relationship is for both people to bring the best themselves and both people to show up emotionally and physically in the relationship. So if you've been withdrawing emotionally and physically, and there could be very solid reasons for that, you need to think about what might happen if you both showed up emotionally and physically. How much better would your lives be? Next question is, do you have kids and what lessons do you want to teach them? Leaving a relationship is essentially more difficult if you've got children, when you have to go to co-parenting. The ending of a relationship or the ending of a marriage can be quite damaging to children sometimes. But if you have kids, there appears to be a greater impetus to stay. Next thing is, how entwined are your lives with each other? So if you live together, if you run a business together, if you work together, if your source of income is from each other, you've got 3 kids and you never spend a moment apart, well, then separating from a relationship can be incredibly messy and incredibly difficult, particularly if you've got companies together, if you've got a business together. All that stuff can be really, really, really hard to unpack or to disconnect. And so it's really important to ask the question if that's the case. And then there can be a high impetus to stay, but sometimes if that's going on, people can stay in a relationship where they probably shouldn't, because of all those entangling of each other's lives. You need to ask the question, how entwined are you? Next thing is, can your partner take responsibility for their part in the relationship. It's really important that both people have the capability to take responsibility for what they're bringing to the relationship. Now, if your partner has difficulty with that, well, then there might be a problem. And then you may need to sit down with an expert couples counselor like myself and to have that conversation on how important that is. The next thing is, do you want the same thing? As in 5 years from now, does your future look the same thing? Do you want the same thing from your future in 5 years from now? Now, sometimes couples can get to the point of saying, should I stay or should I go, when they can't answer that question positively. For example, one person might want to go, backpacking around Europe for a couple of years, and the other person wants to become a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. So the person who wants to do CEO, they want to be working for 8 to 10 hours a day, and the person that wants to do the backpacking doesn't want to work at all. And there's going to be a fundamental disconnect there. So you need to want the same thing, you need to want it at the same time. And the final one is, how do you deal with conflict? If you deal with conflict well, then staying in a relationship may be a good idea. If you deal with conflict poorly, then learning conflict management and conflict negotiation skills could be something that could greatly benefit your relationship. So you kind of need to have a think about how you deal with conflict, right? So these are some guidelines for why you think you should stay, right? The next aspect of that question is, should I go? So there's some reasons why you need to think about whether you should go. First thing, is there abuse present in the relationship? There is no good reason to stay in an abusive relationship. If there's a physical abuse, if there's emotional abuse, if there's coercive control, if there's extreme jealousy that's manifested all the time, if there's substantially controlling behavior, you really need to think solely about leaving the relationship, because there's no reason to stay in an abusive relationship. The next thing is that the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse present. Now, John Gottman is a famous relationship educator. He looked at couples who are right on the edge of breaking up, and he saw that if people communicated to each other via these 4 communication patterns, contempt, criticism, stonewalling, and defensiveness, if couples sat down and talked to themselves in a 1-hour interview, talked to each other like that, then there was a 95% probability that their relationship would be up, right? So it's really important for you to pay attention to whether or not the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are present. And if that's the case, you need to get some counseling very, very quickly, or consider whether or not you want to stay, right? The next thing is, how well do you deal with conflict? If you can't deal with conflict well with each other, and how people deal with conflict typically is learnt very early on in life, if you don't deal with conflict well with each other, then there's frequently ongoing problems in the relationship. So you need to think about, how well does my partner deal with conflict, right? If your partner's way of dealing with conflict is getting pissed off and jumping in their car and disappearing for 3 days, and you're not knowing where they are for 3 days because you decided to tell them that it's not okay, that they might come home at midnight very, very drunk, well, then you need to think about, your partner might not be capable of having a great relationship because they might not be capable of dealing with conflict. Okay. The next thing, is your partner capable of taking responsibility for their partner relationship? This is, once again, a really, really important thing, because if your partner always says it's always your fault, well, I can tell you 100% that's not true. Well, that's very rarely true. So it takes 2 people to create a crap relationship, and it takes 2 people to create a good one. But if one person's always pointing at their partner saying it's always your fault, well, they need to have a look at what they're doing. And if one person's permanently incapable of taking responsibility for their behavior, well, there's a good probability they might be a narcissist. And you also need to go, okay, maybe being with them is not a good idea. Next thing is, have you emotionally checked out? I've worked with lots and lots of couples, and it becomes very clear over a couple of sessions the person has already checked out. So if you've already checked out, if you're like, yeah, no, I'm done, but you're just kind of organizing the different elements of your life so you can extract yourself, then there really isn't any point going on. That said, I have helped a number of clients get from being emotionally checked out to checking back in. It is possible to do that, but it's a lot more difficult. Have you emotionally checked out? Now, the next one, which is probably most important, is that have you given 100% plus 10% more? This is particularly important with kids. A lot of parents don't want to put kids through the trauma of a divorce. And make no mistake, divorces can be very traumatic on the kids. A lot of parents will say, do I really want to do this? And how do I know when enough is enough? And I answer that question is when you've given it 100% plus 10% more and you've got nothing left. If you're at that place, then you can move forward into the change you're going to experience with no regrets. And that's the important thing. It's important that you move forward with no regrets. So you can look back and go, okay, I gave it my best. Now, sometimes if in the future you might look back and go, maybe I didn't do so great at that particular time, but it's really important for you to go, I've given it my best, right? And I've already talked about the last one, entanglement. So the decision to end a relationship can be monumental, depending on how long you've been with each other, depending on how entangled your lives are, depending on all those things. There can be very, very dramatic consequences for yourself and for everyone. So you need to think really clearly about what it is that you want and what steps you need to take in order for you to get what you want. And what I say to a lot of couples, if particularly in the first session, if they are at the should I stay or should I go phase, is try what I say for 6 weeks and see how you feel then. Like just 3 sessions, 6 weeks, see how you're going. And if you still feel like you've checked out or there's nothing you can do to make you check back in, well, then it's probably a good idea to move forward and to end the relationship. So regardless of whether or not you do that, it's really important for you to I hope, regardless of whether or not you do that, I hope this video has helped to you weighing your decision. If you in the should I stay or should I go phase, it's a really good idea to get some expert advice from an expert in relationships. And if you want to book in for a session, the link is going to be in the video description below. Thanks very much for your time. Please, if you like this content, please like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for your time looking at this video, and I look forward to creating some more content for you in the very near future. Thanks very much. Bye.